The subject I'm going to talk about is one that I take no pleasure from talking about. It depresses the hell out of me, it angers me, but I think it has to be raised. When I set out to make this channel 8, 9 years ago, I really felt that nothing is off the table. This is something I've covered before, but it's just yet another, I was going to say tragic case, but tragedy implies something that is kind of a fluke of nature, that it's like, we talk about tragedy when a natural disaster occurs, but this is preventable. This was a man-made situation. So I'm just going to read out the report, then share some of my thoughts. Dad died after he lost benefits. This is from the Metro. A chronically ill father killed himself after he was declared fit for work and lost his benefits, an inquest heard. Kevin Dooley was found hanged in an upstairs bedroom by his daughter Leanne Dooley, 28, on December the 17th last year and died 3 days later in hospital. The painter and decorator, 48, suffered breathing problems caused by chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and had been told he was too sick to return to his job. Despite this, assessors for the Department of Work and Pensions declared him fit for work last July, an inquest at Wakefield Coroner's Court heard. His appeal was rejected and his benefits were stopped in November. In a statement, his daughter told the inquest he was extremely worried about not having money. Miss Dooley said her father seemed very quiet and worried on the day he hanged himself. She was out in Leeds when he sent her a text saying, "Love you." She added, "I knew straight away there was something wrong." Recording a conclusion of suicide, coroner Jonathan Leach said the loss of his benefits had a very detrimental effect on Mr. Dooley. It ultimately caused him to take his own life, but no note had been left, so we don't know if that was the case, he added. Um, well, I think no or not, it's just common sense that if someone is sick to begin with, and then they have to suffer severe anxiety that comes from that financial uncertainty, being basically thrown out in the cold. It's just common sense that that has the potential to drive someone over the edge. I am absolutely sickened and disgusted by these useless jobs worths who constantly make these sort of decisions, and they don't give a damn how it has an effect on people's lives. And I think that's significant. I've no doubt this will be put down to administrative error, and the DWP will say how sad they are. But the truth is, there's a culture problem here. There's a culture, not the sort of conservative right wing idea of something for nothing culture. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the culture at the DWP of callous indifference to the people, the human beings that it's dealing with. The DWP treats claimants like numbers. They don't care. They don't care about individual people and their circumstances. They just think, okay, this person, this number, this oh, computer says no. Computer says, because I'm obviously imitating the Little Britain thing, but the scary thing was the whole, well, actually, League of Gentlemen, Pauline, the character Pauline, if you're familiar with the series, it wasn't that exaggerated. I know from experience that there are people in the job centre who really do just talk down to claimants. Now, I know that there will be some people who are unpleasant, who are obnoxious, and I'm not saying they have an easy job, but they have to remember that the people they're working with are not criminals. They're legally entitled to benefits, whatever Daily Mail sort of opinions think of that. That is what the welfare system was set up as. And basically, I feel strongly that over the last 10, 20 years, the DWP has been weaponized. It's been used as a way to hammer the unemployed. Um, I frankly wouldn't put it past the Tories to make it as degrading as possible. Um, so, like, knowing that people are going to be pushed over the edge, so they'll either leave the system voluntarily, whether or not they've got a job, or they'll commit suicide. Um, I honestly wouldn't put it past the Tories to do anything to, make an artificial situation where on paper the unemployment figures look lower and they boast about it. Um, but it's kind of like the ends justify the means situation. Um, I find it sickening. I totally, you know, we may be a free country and we may have freedom of expression and all that. Those are things we need to hold dear, and we must be eternally grateful to those brave men who stormed the beaches at Normandy for that freedom. But situations like this make me think we cannot say that we are standard bearers of human rights, because the way people are being treated, people who are genuinely sick, it's absolutely disgusting. The Tories have a lot to answer for because they campaign on this. They campaign on making the claimants work for their money, and they promote this culture. They're, of course, they'll deny it. I wrote to Theresa May actually years ago because this is something I've been following for years. When she was Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, this must have been a good 12, 13 years ago. I've still got the letter, and I'd written to her to challenge her on the Tories' attitude to this because, of course, they were pitching their thing for the election, and she kind of blamed the media and said, "Oh, it was a distortion of their position." But I cannot overlook that in the 2010 general election, they had big billboards up saying, "We'll make the claimants work for their money," and strivers versus scroungers. This disgusting scapegoating that they were doing. If you ask a Tory politician about something like this, they'll say, "Oh, it's very sad," and uh, but you cannot prove that it's their policies that are doing this. The point is, the system has become cruel and callous. It's meant to be helping people. It's meant to be, the system was set up to help people when they're struggling, when they're unemployed, and there's many people who legitimately cannot work. They're not lazy. They're not being selfish. They legitimately cannot work for, in many cases, serious medical conditions. There's been people who've been, on the point of death. They've been chronically ill, and the DWP sends some threatening letters. So there is a culture there. It's a culture based on targets. It's a culture based on sanctions. I mean, they care a lot more about sanctions than they do about giving people money that they're legally entitled to. And the problem is, I think one reason that the government's got away with this for so long and the DWP has got away with it for so long is sadly the wider public is quite ignorant about this even today. I mean, Ken Loach's film, I, Daniel Blake, was very important, but there's still a lot of people out there who have this mentality, oh, the lazy doll scroungers just get free money. It infuriates me. I know there are people who abuse the system. You know, the sort of people that Jeremy Kyle would parade on his show. But they were extreme cases. Most claimants really aren't like that. And most claimants, if you say, would you like to be in this situation where these jobs were speak down to you and, threaten sanctions at their whim, basically. If you're half a minute late to their interview, they'll take off your, I don't even like saying benefits because I think it sends out the wrong message. I think it sends out this idea that you're benefiting from free money, but it's not free. Anyway, they threaten people at the tiniest whim. They could actually, their calling, they could take off someone's month worth of money because they might be half a minute late, or because some idiot in the system has messed up the paperwork through no fault of the claimant, and then they've not attended a particular interview or something like that. So there needs to be a fundamental cultural change where they stop treating claimants like criminals, where they start treating them with some degree of respect. I'm not saying special treatment. I'm just saying treat them in a civil way. I mean, if you're a customer in any shop and they're rude to you, you would complain about it. The way I see it is the job centre is supposed to be a service. It's supposed to be helping people get back into work. As it stands, it's being used as a way to punish the unemployed. I think that's disgusting. And this is something I take pretty personally because I've been through the system. I've been on that receiving end of it, of having people talking down to me. It's a very unpleasant feeling because people don't have the power to fight back. If they were to defend themselves and vocalize that, they would be accused of causing trouble. I mean, there are some unpleasant people go in there. I know that, but by the same token, staff can basically talk down to people, be rude to people, and they can get away with it. It's a pretty corrupt system, and it's these fat cats who run back to work programs, which are money making schemes, the likes of Sensia and A4E. They are despicable. I mean, I think there's something particularly rotten about making your money off exploiting other people in that way. And what I'm talking about is so-called work programs where people are forced to do a particular job for their benefits, but it isn't in proportion to the hours that they're actually doing. A lot of people will say, "Oh, well, that's fair," but I just wish people were more informed about what was actually going on, what is actually going on in this system. And a lot of people are in a situation where they've got no choice but to sign on. Um, they've got dependents. They're in a situation where they have to sign on, and they have to put up with this constant abuse. Patronizing advisors, threatening letters all the time. There's a fundamental rotten culture in the DWP, which is about punishing people. It's not about helping people, it's about punishing people. I have a good mind actually to write to someone, whether the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, not sure who that is right now, but it's something I feel very strongly about. I am not calling for claimants to be given special treatment. I'm simply saying that this was a system set up to help people. Its principle was the welfare state. It was about giving people a safety net. As it stands, it's being weaponized by the Conservative Party, and New Labour wasn't blamed this either. But it's being weaponized, and it's despicable. I think it's been. I honestly think that these people are trained to talk down to claimants because if they why is it so widespread? I'm not saying, by the way, every advisor is like that. There's decent people as there are everywhere. I'm not saying every single person who works for the DWP is like that, but too many are, and it's because of a culture whereby they're trained to just say, okay, you need to constantly be watching out for people fiddling the system or whatever it is. It's a system that is based on sanctions. And the fact of the matter is, the amount of money that is lost in the DWP, to the taxpayer, whatever way you want to look at it, just doesn't correspond to the sort of money that offshore tax havens for the super rich loses out in the tax system. So the general public really need to be informed about this. You ask Jill or Joe blogs about welfare, very often they'll say, "Oh, the lazy dole scroungers get free money," and it's poison like the Daily Mail promotes this because they distort the situation. They take extreme cases and say this is the norm. And the amount of suffering that's going on here, I wouldn't be surprised if there's hundreds of suicides because, if not thousands, from people being pushed over the edge. There was that guy Stephen Smith in Liverpool a while back. There's this case. There's many, many others. People who are genuinely, legitimately sick. They have um, evidence from their doctors, and the DWP, in its utter uselessness, in its utter callousness, just ignores that. I mean, I don't know if it's sheer incompetence or willful callousness. I think it's a bit of both. And it's something that this is the one thing that would stop me ever voting Tory. Why? Because they are the party that promotes it. They're the party that supports this system as it is. And they want it to be this way because the Tories have contempt for the unemployed. They look down on the unemployed. They have a survival of the fittest mentality. And no, I'm not some rancing socialist. I just think that what is happening with this is it's wrong. This should not be going on in a developed country, a liberal democracy in the 21st century. And I think years from now, people will look back and say that how could a modern state drive some of the most vulnerable people in society over the edge? It's a damn disgrace.